Most women will not come right out and say they have a crush on you in the beginning. It is just not how most of us are built. There's something about the early days of feeling attracted to someone that makes it very difficult to simply walk up and say it out loud. Those feelings are new, they are vulnerable, and speaking them into existence can feel both exciting and terrifying at the same time. So instead of announcing those feelings, many women carry them quietly. They keep them tucked away behind a smile, hidden beneath ordinary conversations, and protected by a careful attempt to appear unaffected. But while words may stay silent, the face almost never does. Long before she ever sends a message, long before she finds the courage to admit how she feels, her face is already revealing more than she realizes. If you've ever found yourself wondering whether a woman secretly likes you, I want you to stay with me because today's conversation might completely change the way you see attraction. And I would love to hear from you. Have you ever looked back on a situation and realized the signs were there all along, but you missed them? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else understand their own situation a little better. And if you're someone who has struggled with reading signals, know that you're certainly not alone. I'm Mary Smith, host of Senior Mindful Living YouTube channel. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing attraction begins with words. In reality, attraction often begins with attention. It begins with tiny shifts in behavior that happen beneath conscious awareness. Psychologists have spent decades studying nonverbal communication, and what they consistently find is fascinating. Human beings communicate enormous amounts of information without speaking. Our posture, our expressions, our eyes, and even our timing reveal emotional truths we may not be ready to verbalize. Think about the last time you were genuinely excited to see someone. Maybe it was an old friend. Maybe it was a family member you had not seen in years. Before you said a single word, your face probably changed. Your eyes brightened. Your smile appeared naturally. Your body became more energized. You did not decide to do those things. They simply happened. Attraction works much the same way. The reason this matters is because many men spend years looking for complicated signs while completely missing the simple ones. They assume attraction must be dramatic or obvious. They expect grand gestures. But real attraction often begins quietly. It whispers before it shouts. And perhaps the most powerful signal of all begins with something so subtle that most people overlook it entirely. It starts with where her attention goes when she thinks nobody is watching. Imagine you're at a coffee shop. You're reading something on your phone. Across the room, a woman notices you. She tells herself she's just looking around the room. She tells herself she's not really paying attention. Yet somehow her eyes keep finding their way back to you. This happens because attraction naturally creates curiosity. When we are interested in someone, our brains become fascinated by them. We want information, we want details, we want another glimpse. We want to understand who they are. Researchers often describe attention as one of the strongest indicators of emotional investment. We focus on what matters to us. We return our attention to what interests us. This is why one of the earliest signs a woman likes you is that she watches you when she thinks you are not looking. Now, this doesn't mean staring. It doesn't mean making someone uncomfortable. Attraction is usually much softer than that. Instead, it looks like repeated glances. You look up and catch her eye. She immediately looks away. A few minutes later, it happens again, then again. At first, she may not even realize she's doing it. Her attention is simply following her interest. I once spoke with a woman who described meeting her future husband at a friend's birthday party. She laughed when telling the story because she spent nearly an hour pretending not to notice him. But according to her friends, she looked at him constantly. Every time he moved to a different part of the room, her eyes followed. Every time he laughed, she looked over. Every time someone mentioned his name, she listened. At the time, she believed she was being incredibly subtle. Everyone else knew exactly what was happening. That is the funny thing about attraction. The person experiencing it often believes they are hiding it well. The people around them can usually see it clearly. But there is an even deeper layer to this. When a woman genuinely likes you, her gaze often changes in quality, not just frequency. This is where many men miss an important clue. Most people move through life carrying a certain amount of tension. We are thinking about responsibilities, deadlines, family concerns, finances, and countless other things. The human brain is constantly monitoring the environment. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as social monitoring. We are evaluating situations, reading reactions, managing impressions, trying to fit into social environments. For many women, this mental activity runs quietly in the background all day long. But something interesting happens when a woman feels emotionally safe around someone she is attracted to. The tension softens. Her nervous system relaxes. Her attention becomes more present. And that shift often appears first in her eyes. Her gaze becomes warmer, softer, more engaged. Instead of looking through you, she looks at you. Instead of scanning the room, she stays connected to the moment. And this matters because attraction is not just about physical appeal. It is also about emotional safety. Many people underestimate how important this is. A woman can find a man attractive and still feel guarded around him. But when attraction and safety come together, something different happens. Her body begins to relax. Her expressions become more genuine. Her reactions become more natural. You start seeing the real person instead of the socially polished version. This is why eye contact can be so revealing. The eyes often show what the mouth is not ready to say. Now, I want to pause for a moment and talk directly to those of you who have felt discouraged by modern dating. Because I know there are many people listening right now who are tired of mixed signals, tired of rejection, tired of wondering whether anyone is genuinely interested. Maybe you've had experiences where you thought someone liked you and later discovered you were wrong. Maybe you've convinced yourself that attraction is impossible to understand. Or maybe you've reached a point where you simply stopped trying. If that's you, I want you to remember something important. Nobody reads signals perfectly. Nobody. Even psychologists misread situations sometimes. Human beings are complex. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. The goal is becoming better at noticing patterns. Because attraction is rarely communicated through a single sign. It is communicated through clusters of behaviors that appear consistently over time. And that brings us to another powerful clue. A woman's face becomes more expressive around someone she genuinely likes. Think about what happens when you're talking to someone who bores you. Your responses become smaller, your expressions become flatter, your energy decreases. Now think about talking to someone who genuinely excites you. Everything changes. Your reactions become stronger. You smile more. You laugh more easily. You become animated. Attraction creates energy. And that energy has to go somewhere. When a woman is interested in you, her face often becomes remarkably alive during interactions. Her smile arrives quickly. Her eyes brighten when you speak. Her eyebrows lift when you tell a story. She reacts to little things that other people might ignore. Why? Because her brain is paying special attention. Neuroscience gives us a fascinating explanation for this. When we interact with someone we enjoy, reward systems inside the brain become more active. Positive emotions increase. Attention sharpens. Memory improves. We literally become more engaged. And engagement is visible. You can see it. Not because someone is trying to perform attraction, but because genuine interest naturally creates expression. I remember hearing a story about a man who spent months convinced a woman at work saw him only as a friend. After they eventually started dating, he asked when she first became interested. She laughed and said, "Everyone knew except you." Confused, he asked what she meant. Her answer was simple. "Whenever you entered a room, my entire face changed." The people around her had noticed it long before he did. That story perfectly captures how attraction often works. It leaks out. It escapes through tiny expressions. It reveals itself in moments people never intended to reveal. And the beautiful thing is that these expressions are incredibly difficult to fake consistently. Someone can force a smile. They can rehearse confidence. They can say all the right words. But genuine emotional engagement creates a pattern that feels different. You sense it. You see it. You experience it. And once you learn to recognize that pattern, social interactions begin to feel much less confusing. Because suddenly, you're no longer listening only to words. You're paying attention to behavior. You're noticing consistency. You're observing emotional investment. And that awareness can save you from a tremendous amount of uncertainty. But there is one more sign that may be even more powerful than the others. A sign that often appears before a conversation has even started. A sign that reveals interest while still preserving a woman's sense of safety. And once you recognize it, you'll begin noticing it everywhere. We'll talk about that next. That final sign is surprisingly simple, yet it carries tremendous meaning when you understand the psychology behind it. A woman who is genuinely interested in you will often find small reasons to connect. Not necessarily big reasons, not dramatic reasons, small reasons. This is where attraction becomes especially fascinating because it starts influencing behavior in ways that seem almost accidental. Maybe she asks a question she could have easily figured out herself. Maybe she starts a conversation about something minor. Maybe she comments on something you're doing. Maybe she remembers a detail you mentioned days ago and brings it up again. On the surface, these moments appear ordinary, but beneath them lies something much more significant. Connection requires opportunity, and when someone is attracted to you, they naturally begin creating opportunities for connection. Psychologists often talk about what is called proximity-seeking behavior. Human beings instinctively move toward people they enjoy and away from people they don't. This doesn't happen only in romantic situations. We do it with friends. We do it with family. We do it with coworkers we enjoy. But when attraction enters the picture, the behavior becomes even stronger. A woman who likes you may not know exactly how to express her feelings yet. She may not feel comfortable being direct. She may worry about rejection. She may wonder whether you feel the same way. So instead of announcing her interest, she creates chances for interaction. She stays a little longer after a conversation ends. She finds reasons to continue talking. She asks follow-up questions. She becomes curious about your experiences, your opinions, and your stories. What she's really saying is, I want more time with you. And that is an incredibly meaningful thing. Time is one of the most valuable resources anyone possesses. We invest it carefully. We protect it. We choose where it goes. When someone consistently chooses to invest their attention and time in you, that choice deserves notice. I remember a woman who shared a story about meeting a man at her local gym. She wasn't bold enough to approach him directly, so she started finding tiny reasons to interact. One day, she asked whether he knew how to adjust a piece of equipment. Another day, she commented on a workout routine. A week later, she asked how his weekend had been. Looking back, she admitted she could have found answers to all those questions on her own. The questions were never really about the equipment. They were about connection. They were about creating a bridge. And that is something many men overlook. They assume attraction must always appear as obvious flirting. Sometimes it does. But often attraction appears as curiosity, interest, attention, engagement, a desire to remain connected. Now, it's important to approach this topic with balance and maturity. One sign alone never guarantees attraction. A smile alone doesn't guarantee attraction. Eye contact alone doesn't guarantee attraction. A conversation alone doesn't guarantee attraction. Human behavior is complex. Friendly people exist. Outgoing people exist. Kind people exist. That's why the most reliable approach is looking for multiple signals appearing together. Imagine this scenario. A woman frequently looks in your direction. When you talk, her eyes soften and become engaged. Her face lights up during conversation. She finds small reasons to continue interacting. Now you're no longer looking at a single isolated behavior. You're looking at a pattern, and patterns tell a much clearer story. One of the biggest sources of frustration in dating is trying to interpret isolated moments. But attraction usually reveals itself through consistency, not perfection. Consistency. The woman who likes you isn't necessarily going to send perfect signals every single day. She'll still have bad moods, stressful days, moments of distraction, moments of uncertainty. She's still human. What matters is the overall direction of her behavior. When someone likes you, they generally move toward you rather than away from you. They become more open rather than more closed, more engaged rather than more distant, more curious rather than less interested. That doesn't mean everything becomes effortless. Even attraction comes with nervousness. In fact, nervousness is often part of the package. Some women become more talkative around someone they like. Others become quieter. Some become playful. Others become shy. This is why understanding emotional context matters so much. Attraction isn't a scripted performance. It's a collection of human reactions shaped by personality, life experience, confidence levels, and emotional history. And perhaps that's what makes it so beautiful. No two stories look exactly the same. No two people express interest in exactly the same way. Yet beneath all those differences, certain themes remain remarkably consistent. Attention, warmth, curiosity, connection. These are the universal languages of attraction. But there is another lesson hidden inside everything we've discussed today. A lesson that may be even more valuable than learning how to recognize signs. The lesson is this: confidence doesn't come from knowing someone likes you. Confidence comes from knowing you'll be okay regardless of the answer. Many men spend years searching for certainty before taking action. They want a guarantee, a promise, proof beyond all doubt. But human relationships rarely provide that. There is always some uncertainty. There is always some risk. And that is perfectly normal. The purpose of these signs is not to eliminate uncertainty completely. The purpose is to help you make more informed decisions, to help you recognize opportunities you might otherwise miss, to help you approach someone with greater awareness and less fear. Because the truth is, Some of the most meaningful relationships begin with a simple conversation, a conversation that almost never happened, a conversation both people were secretly hoping for, a conversation delayed by assumptions, fear, or self-doubt. How many relationships never begin because two people spend months waiting for the other person to make the first move? How many opportunities disappear because both people misread the situation? These questions are worth thinking about. And if you're watching today, I want to challenge you with a small exercise. The next time you're in a social setting, slow down. Observe. Pay attention. Not in a judgmental way, not in a calculating way. Simply become more aware. Notice people's expressions. Notice their energy. Notice who they engage with naturally. Notice where their attention goes. Most importantly, notice how people behave consistently over time. You may be surprised by how much information has always been there. You've simply been moving too quickly to see it. Another helpful exercise is reflecting on your own behavior when you're attracted to someone. Think back to a time when you genuinely liked someone. What did you do? Did you look for reasons to be near them? Did you remember small details they shared? Did you smile more when they were around? Did you check your phone hoping for a message? Did you replay conversations in your mind afterward? Most people answer yes to at least some of those questions. And that's because attraction changes attention. It changes priorities. It changes behavior. Once you understand that principle, recognizing attraction in others becomes much easier. Because you're no longer looking for magic tricks. You're looking for human nature. And human nature tends to be surprisingly consistent. Before we finish, I want to leave you with one final thought. The healthiest way to approach attraction is with respect. Always. If a woman seems interested, approach with kindness. If she isn't interested, respond with kindness. If the signals are unclear, respond with kindness. Respect creates confidence. Respect creates maturity. Respect creates opportunities for genuine connection. The goal isn't to decode every woman you meet. The goal is to become more aware, more present, and more emotionally intelligent. Because emotional intelligence is ultimately what creates meaningful relationships. It helps you listen. It helps you understand. It helps you connect. And those qualities will always be more attractive than any clever line or rehearsed technique. So the next time you notice a woman looking your way, don't rush to conclusions. Pay attention. Observe the pattern. Notice the warmth in her eyes. Notice the energy in her expressions. Notice the small reasons she finds to stay connected. Notice whether her attention keeps returning to you. Because sometimes the heart begins speaking long before the mouth finds the courage to say the words. And when you learn how to recognize that quiet language, the world becomes a little less confusing and a lot more hopeful. If today's conversation resonated with you, let me know in the comments which sign surprised you the most. I read your comments and I truly enjoy hearing your experiences and perspectives. And if you know someone who could benefit from hearing this message, consider sharing this video with them. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope this discussion gives you a little more clarity, a little more confidence, and a little more peace as you navigate the complicated but beautiful world of human connection. You deserve relationships that are genuine. You deserve honesty. You deserve warmth. And most importantly, you deserve the courage to recognize opportunities when they appear. Sometimes the signs are quieter than we expect, but they are there. And once you learn to see them, you may discover that someone has been hoping you'll notice all along.